Hi, welcome to Chapter Book Storytime. I'm Ellen from EVPL Oakland, and on today's edition of the Variety Pack, I have a new book by an author who has a very unique way of telling his stories. The author is byBrian Selznick, and the new book is called Big Tree. Now, when I hold this book up in the schools, I always ask, now, how many of you look at the size of this and say, I'm not reading a book that big. No way I could finish that. Well, let me show you. I said, byBrian Selznick has a very unique way of telling stories. He wrote The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which some of you might know, and it was turned into the movie Hugo. He also wrote a book called Wonderstruck, just as big and just as heavy. But when you look inside, byBrian Selznick is a very gifted artist, and he uses illustrations to help guide the story along and also to bring about some very important points of it. Big Tree starts out like many motion pictures. It starts out very far away from the main character, and then the camera focuses in closer and closer and closer until you see the main character in their world. So you get some perspective of where they are. So let's take a look at Big Tree and see what's happening. Funny thing though, Big Tree started out as an idea for a movie, and it starts out like one. Chapter 1, The Stars. And now we're going to focus in a little closer. Hello, stars. The stars. I thought I heard you calling me. Do you have something to tell me, stars? Do you notice how we're focusing in closer and closer? We were in outer space, then we saw the moon, and now we're here going to Earth. At least I think it's Earth. I think that's a forest. Can you see me from up in the sky? I want to know what you're saying. Oh, look, morning is coming. Will I see you tomorrow night? Don't forget my name. I'm Louise. 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 Louise, wake up! Startled, all of Louise's brothers and sisters looked toward her and fell right back asleep. All of them except Merwin, who had shouted in the first place. Louise, Merwin said more gently this time, you're talking in your sleep again. Oh, I was dreaming. You're always dreaming, said her brother. I was dreaming about the stars. I know, I could hear you. I dreamed the stars were calling to me. I think they were trying to tell me something, but they're very hard to understand. Merwin sighed. Go back to sleep, Louise. But Louise was now wide awake. She wriggled, though not very much, because 100 siblings were crammed into the seed ball with her. Louise was the smallest seed, and the only one who did not reach the surface. All she could see was darkness, except for a very small crack of light far above her head. Most of her brothers and sisters ignored her, but Merwin, who was wedged tightly against her, sometimes described the world to her. The stars are very small, Louise said, remembering her brother's description of the tiny dots of light in the sky, even smaller than I am. I think stars are little seeds. Little seeds? Merwin asked, confused. Like me, said Louise. And then a new thought entered her mind. I think they grow up to be the moon. Answered Merwin, trying as ever to be patient. I don't think that happens. Then why do I dream about the stars all the time? I have no idea. You've never even seen the stars. I know, I've never seen anything. She pressed a little closer against Merwin, straining in the darkness. But when you describe things to me, I feel like I can see them. Tell me what you see right now. Merwin was tired and wished they could just sleep. Well, the forest is just starting to wake up. The sunlight is bright and makes everything turn to gold. Oh, it sounds beautiful. It is beautiful, he said, pleased with himself. When I grow up, whispered Louise, I want to live on the moon. Merwin tried not to laugh. That way I can look down on the whole forest every day. That's sweet, but you can't live on the moon. Why not? Well, said Merwin, who realized he wasn't entirely sure. It's too far away. How would you get there? With my wings. You don't have wings. Not yet, but Mama says we're going to have wings. Roots and wings. She doesn't mean you're really going to have wings. It's a metaphor. What's that? What's a metaphor? It means it's a Mama, help! Chapter 2, Mama. The sycamore tree rustled her leaves, and a ray of sunshine burst through her canopy, lighting up the one little seed ball among her many thousands where Merwin and Louise were waiting. What are you two doing up so early? Mama wanted to know. Well, I'm trying to explain to Louise that we're not really going to have wings, said Merwin. But you said it, Mama, Louise reminded her. You said we'll have roots and wings. Birds have wings and they can fly. Merwin told me. I want wings too. I think I understand what's going on, Mama said. Louise doesn't know what a metaphor is. Exactly, said Merwin. Mama's full attention went to Louise. One day, when the time is right, you're going to go out into the world. But not with wings, interrupted Merwin. No, not with wings, affirmed Mama. But if I've done my job right, you'll be brave enough and strong enough to fly through the air as if you had wings. And then you'll find a safe place to put down your roots. That way you can grow up to be a big, strong tree, like me. A good parent always gives their children roots and wings. Roots to settle down and wings to bravely go where you need to go. That's a metaphor. Now do you understand what I mean? But I'm so small, said Louise from her little patch of darkness. Will I grow up to be a small tree? You can grow to be the biggest tree of all, said Mama, if the conditions are right. What are the conditions? Asked Louise. Tell her, Merwin. Good soil, plenty of light, and fresh water. Well done, said Mama, filling Merwin with pride. Louise repeated the conditions. Good soil, plenty of light, fresh water. Can we put down roots right here where you are, Mama? Asked Merwin. That way we won't have to go far at all. When I was your age, remembered Mama, this area of the old forest had enough sunlight for me to grow. It's very shady now, isn't it? Merwin looked around and noticed all the shade. I guess so, he replied. A thin shaft of light from the sky shimmered and danced as air moved through the leaves. The little seeds could feel their mother's pleasure. Besides, you never know where the wind will take you, she whispered. But what happens if we put down our roots in the wrong place? And how long will it take? Merwin tried to keep his voice low enough so Louise wouldn't hear. And what if we never find the right soil, light, or water? What then? Mama exhaled, calming Merwin, even though he was aware she hadn't actually answered him. Louise piped up from inside the seed ball. I want to grow up on the moon." "Well, that's exciting." "But, Mama," whispered Merwin, "she can't go to the moon." "Let your sister dream, Merwin. Dreaming is important." "But what about reality?" "Oh, that's important as well." Merwin thought he could get by perfectly well without Louise's dreams, but he was sure his sister couldn't get by for 10 minutes without his help. "I will keep her safe, Mama," he said. "You're a brave seed, Merwin, and I know you'll keep each other safe," Mama said. Merwin was about to tell Mama that Louise couldn't keep him safe with her dreams when a sudden shout erupted from the underground. "Attention, trees of the forest!" Merwin and Louise could barely hear it, but to Mama the shout sounded like 1,000 deep voices all speaking at once. "Attention, it is time!" "Sorry, children," she said. "The ambassadors are here, and they sound worried about something. I'll be back." In a flash, Mama had shifted her attention away from the two little seeds. They immediately felt her absence and pressed against each other, straining to hear what was happening far below them on the ground. Chapter 3, The Ambassadors. "Attention, trees! We have an emergency warning." The deep voices were coming from 3 mushrooms who had just popped up from the forest floor. "Emergency?" Mama asked the ambassadors. "What is going on?" The biggest mushroom stood up straight. "Ma'am, we were gathering our usual information but got distracted and, The middle mushroom stepped in. "We were gathering information around the forest as we always do, and it seems—" "Out with it," said Mama, as her roots absorbed the impatience of all the trees in the forest. "It seems we missed something." "But you never miss anything," said Mama. "Gosh," the littlest mushroom's cap shook proudly. "That's nice of you to say." "Tell her what we missed," said the middle mushroom. "Don't be rude to the tree," said the biggest mushroom. "She just complimented us." "Fine," shouted the middle mushroom. "I'll do it. Trees of the forest, I'm afraid we missed something very important." "Enough. What did you miss?" asked Mama. "A giant," said the ambassadors. "A giant?" cried all the trees in the forest. Even the young birches, who usually stayed so quiet, could be heard amid the din. "A giant could eat us in one gulp," they cried. Nearby, a grove of old pines who had survived their share of insect attacks and lightning strikes over the years were particularly unhappy. "The ambassadors of our youth were much more informed, never made mistakes. Today's mushrooms are distracted and don't deserve the energy we give them." Mama quickly turned her attention back to her children. The little seeds were all wide awake now as the entire forest vibrated with nervous energy. Though Merwin could barely hear the ambassadors, he understood that a giant was coming. He wasn't exactly sure what a giant was, but the fear in the ambassadors' voices told him it must be dangerous. Louise, meanwhile, squirmed and wriggled with excitement, aware that something big was about to happen. "Stop moving," whispered Merwin, straightening up and trying to seem brave for his sister. "Hush, children," said Mama, "and stay still." When the forest had grown calm and quiet, her mind returned to the ambassadors, and she asked the most important question. "Where is the giant now?" The ambassadors looked up. It's there!" Do you know what the giant is? Take a look at the illustrations. Do you think you know? I thought I knew until I saw the next page. Did you think it was an elephant? So did I. but that's not an elephant's tail. I know the story showed us plainly where we are, in a forest, but it hasn't told us yet when we are. So maybe that illustration is a clue. Describe the giant to me, Merwin, pleaded Louise. Was it big? Was it bigger than Mama? Is anything bigger than Mama? After watching the entire monstrous thing go by, Merwin could hardly speak. Mama's leaves were in the way, he lied. I couldn't see anything. Meanwhile, all the trees in the forest were in an uproar, furious at the tiny ambassadors. Everyone, quiet, Mama said, exhaling once more. Now, ambassadors, please explain to us what that was all about. We rely on you for information, and we can't have you getting distracted. You're too important to all of us. The mushrooms shivered. They took their job seriously. Even though they looked small when they surfaced, they were actually part of a vast underground system with millions of miles of tiny fibers connecting all the roots of the trees in the forest like an endless river of knowledge. This system moved huge amounts of information about water, nutrients, insects, weather, and anything else the trees needed to stay alive. Though mostly hidden, the ambassadors were the largest living thing in the entire forest, and they never made mistakes. The biggest mushroom tried to answer. It's just. The middle mushroom stepped in. Something unusual is going on. And we can't quite figure it out, the littlest mushroom added. The mushrooms started whispering among themselves until Mama demanded, Enough with your fighting. Pull yourselves together and talk to us. The smallest mushroom's cap bowed apologetically. We've been receiving some kind of message. The biggest mushroom tried to clarify and added, A strange message. From where? Asked Mama. That's what's confusing. We don't know where it's coming from, answered the middle mushroom, or what it's saying. It's messing with all of our systems. It's unlike any message we've ever received, continued the biggest one. We think it might be from... Where? Asked Mama. The ambassadors answered in unison, Beyond the forest. Mama gasped. But how is that possible? We don't know. We've never received a message from so far away. At that same moment, high up in Mama's leafy canopy, a bird flapped its wings and rose into the air, causing the long branch it had been sitting on to bounce. All the seedlings hanging from the branch bounced too. Merwin startled as he strained to hear Mama's conversation. Louise, who had been also trying to listen, thought she'd heard something about a strange message from beyond the forest. Louise remembered her dream. Were the stars talking to the ambassadors too? Did they have a message for them as well? Far below, all three of the mushrooms felt a jolt from beneath them and jumped. Oh! They exclaimed at the same time. Got it! What is it? Asked Mama. Some news from the other side of the forest. What does it say? The three ambassadors shouted together. Danger! Chapter 4, Roots and Wings. A strange trembling moved through the air. All the little seeds felt it. The sensation grew stronger, and soon a distant blast of thunder rocked the forest. Lightning flashed on the horizon, and the faint smell of smoke spread through the branches. What was that? Asked Louise, shaken from her thoughts about the stars. Merwin had no idea. Just a little bit of rain from beyond the forest, he said. Isn't that right, Mama? The great noise grew louder, and for the first time, Mama did not answer. She was too focused on her argument with the ambassadors far below. Meanwhile, Louise was thinking about the strange message and wondering if it might be about her future. What would her future hold? Merwin, what if I don't want to be a tree? What are you talking about? What if I want to be a star or a bird when I grow up? Or what's the other thing you were describing? What thing? That big green sparkling thing with the point? The mountain? Yes, the mountain. Describe it to me again. You know what it looks like. Please, Merwin. It's big and green. It reaches up to the sky. It can touch the sky? Yes. That's what I want to be when I grow up. What? A beautiful mountain that can touch the sky. We can't be a mountain when we grow up. Why not? Because we're trees, Louise. Well, yes, I know that, she said. What type of tree do you want to be? I'm not sure what type of tree I want to be. We're sycamore seeds. We don't have a choice. Maybe, but I don't know if that's what the stars are saying. Stars can't talk. They can in dreams. Merwin was just about to explain the difference between dreaming and real life when the argument between Mama and the ambassadors grew stronger. All the little seeds felt their attention pulled toward their mother's voice. Hundreds of giants are coming this way? Why are there so many? She demanded. What are they running from? We're trying to figure that out. Then all three mushrooms jumped from another underground jolt. Oh, they cried. Wait, now we know what it is. Well, tell us, yelled Mama on behalf of the whole forest. As one, the ambassadors screamed. Fire! Louise was clinging to Merwin when, quick as a thought, Mama was back with them. This is it, children, she said. This is what? Asked Merwin. Mama stayed quiet as she brought up extra water from the ground by her great roots. She was soaking herself from the inside, trying to protect herself and her children from the oncoming fire, even though she sensed the flames might be overpowering. Mama took a breath and said, It is time to fly. Louise was thrilled. We're going to fly? Now? But I don't want to fly, Mama, said Merwin, lowering his voice so Louise wouldn't hear him. I'm not ready. Just remember what I've told you. How long will it take, Mama? Where should we go? What if we never find the soil and the sun and the water we're looking for? What happens then? Will we die? As Merwin spoke, more conflicting, terrifying messages were coming in from the ambassadors through Mama's roots. She tried to listen as she continued to bring up as much water as she could, aware that she needed to share the moisture with the younger trees of the forest as well. Her mind was being pulled in different directions, but her main concern was for her children. Roots and wings, my loves, she said to all of them. Roots and wings. Louise danced with excitement as Merwin trembled and called, Mama! But there was nothing she could do. The giants had arrived. One of them, wild with fear as it fled, ran directly toward Mama, its body flailing. Its tail swung dangerously through the air, slicing leaves, branches, and seed balls as it frantically tried to save itself. The sound was unlike anything the seeds had heard before. Charcoal and smoke filled the air. There was a shocking, indescribably loud explosion, and suddenly, Louise and Merwin were free. Chapter 5, The Sky. I'm thinking this is Merwin and this is Louise. Louise! Merwin cried. Hold on to me! He and his sister grasped each other with all their strength, using little bits of fluff that had anchored them to their seed ball. Louise delighted in all the wild new sensations, the blowing wind, the shining sun, and the glorious freedom she felt for the first time in her life. Merwin tried to ignore the strange, disorienting feeling of the air blowing through his fluff so he could concentrate all his attention on holding on to Louise. In his mind, he kept seeing the moment the giant's tail hit their little seed ball, catapulting them violently into the sky. Somewhere below, all their siblings were adrift in the wind. Merwin and Louise floated farther up and away from the smoke and the fire of the burning forest. "Is this the sky?" Louise asked with wonder. "Yes," Merwin managed to answer. "So that means we're flying!" A wide draft of hot wind lifted Merwin and Louise past flurries of ash and smoldering leaves. The smoke and clouds parted for a moment, revealing a terrible sight. Far below, lying on her side, was their wise, beautiful mama amid a stampede of giants, her sturdy, curved trunk snapped in half like a twig. Merwin quickly turned away. He was relieved to find Louise captivated by the fragments of leaves drifting around them, unaware of the nightmare below. Merwin swore to himself he'd keep the truth from his sister. He'd promised Mama he would protect her, after all. "I didn't know leaves could fly, too," said Louise. "Leaves can't fly," Merwin answered through the haze of his confusion and grief. "We can't fly either. We're floating. It's different." "What happens to leaves when they fall off the tree? Are they alive or dead?" Merwin couldn't find the words to answer, and for a little while they moved through the air in silence. "Merwin, are those clouds?" Louise was too exhilarated to wait for an answer. "And over there, are those birds? And is that the sun? They're just like you described. They're the most beautiful things I've ever seen." "Well, they're the only things I've ever seen. And now I want to see more. I want to see everything." Merwin looked at the joy that had overtaken his sister and forgot for a moment how sad he was. "Merwin, I'm glad Mama gave us wings, but I think we should say goodbye to the clouds and the birds." "Why?" "Because we're falling." Merlin and Louise clutched each other and screamed. There are the clouds. Chapter 6, On the Moon. Louise looked around in astonishment. "Oh, Merwin," she said, "we did it! We landed on the moon!" She heard her brother say something, but she was too excited to pay him much attention. "I can't believe we flew all the way to the moon, can you? Mama would be so proud." Again, Louise heard her brother's voice, but when she turned around, she was surprised to find he wasn't there. "Merwin!" Louise got up and peered over the edge of the moon. "Oh, there you are, Merwin," said Louise, as she noticed strange creatures moving about beneath the glassy surface of the water. "What are those things?" she asked. "They must be the giants of the moon. Did you know there were giants on the moon? You never told me about them." "We are not on the moon," Merwin said. Where are we then?" "We're on a rock," he wheezed, "in the water." "Oh, well, I like it here. Look how the light reflects on the surface. It's shimmery." A bit of his fluff slipped, and he shouted, "Ah, Louise, I think—" More and more of Merwin's fluff came loose from the rock until he seemed to be hanging by almost nothing at all. "It's very slippery here, isn't it?" observed Louise. "Louise!" her brother shouted, "help me!" And with that, he slipped off the edge and fell toward the water. But Louise was quick. She grabbed him at the last possible moment and pulled him up onto the surface of the rock. Merwin hugged his sister tightly and almost convinced himself that he was the one who saved her. As the bright burning sun shone down on the two little seeds, Louise leaned gently against her brother. But Merwin, with the image of their lost mama in his mind, quietly began to panic. "This is awful," he thought. "What in the world are we going to do?" "Let's put down our roots here, said Louise, as if reading his mind. "We can't do that." "Why not?" "Don't you remember what Mama said?" "Oh, yes. We need plenty of light." She turned to the sun. "Look, there's so much light here." "And what else did Mama say we need to take root?" Water? There's so much water. And the third thing? Asked her brother. I don't remember. Good soil, Louise. We can't grow on a rock. Louise was thoughtful for a moment. Maybe it's not a rock. Maybe it's an island. It's a rock. Maybe it's a baby island and it will grow up along with us. Maybe all we have to do is wait. We have to find a place to take root soon, otherwise what? We will never grow up, he thought. Maybe we should go back to Mama, Louise said. We can't go back. Why not? Merwin remembered Mama's words. You're a brave seed. Because Mama gave us roots and wings, he said, and she wants us to find a place to grow. A soft breeze skimmed the water and gently blew the fluff of the little seeds. Merwin felt Louise sit up and turn to him. Yes, she asked. Yes, what? Didn't you just say my name? No. I heard you say my name, Louise said. I didn't say your name. I heard a voice. There was no voice. Is the wind talking? The wind can't talk. Well, maybe it's the stars with their message. The stars can't talk, said Merwin. The wind can't talk. Nothing can talk except for us, Louise. Only plants can talk. Everyone knows that. And there are no other plants anywhere near us. We're stuck. Louise sat quietly, watching him. This somehow made him feel worse, and he lay back exhausted. Louise, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said all. Merwin. What? I was right. About what? I told you baby islands can grow. There they are. Uh-oh. What's going on? Oh my. Oh. And there they are, underwater. Mama wanted her children to have roots and wings, but it looks like it's going to be a long journey until Merwin and Louise can put down roots. This is Big Tree by byBrian Selznick. This has been Chapter Book Storytime. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time.